We begin our next briefing. I invite Valeriy Chaly, Presidential Administration Deputy Chief for International Relations, and we will discuss new meetings, new the situation on the international arena. I believe it will be interesting for you. Good afternoon, dear participants of this briefing, this press conference. I would like to start with today. This date is 20 years since in Budapest, nuclear states signed guarantees of security to Ukraine after Ukraine gave up its nuclear status. And it's clear that today, because of we passed this period, and one of the guarantors and who signed that Budapest memorandum occupied Crimea, and in fact destroyed not only the document but also the system of law system, and made a serious undermine the non-proliferation treaty. We have to rethink that situation, and also we have to take decisive steps to restore international order. Ukraine during these years always was compliant with the position and its commitments, even in on such issues when we when during Washington summit in 2010, it was announced that Ukraine refuses to to have high enriched uranium, and that was a very good input in non-proliferation system. Now we have a delegation from American delegation with Rosa Gutem-Möller, and as I understand, she's coming to give a briefing here, and it seems to me that Ukraine was complying with all the requirements, with all the commitments. Unfortunately, there's again an issue how, in the center of Europe, how to guarantee security to countries who took decisive steps for non-proliferation, and who did a lot for European security, and received as a result occupation on a part of the territorial aggression. Today, Ukraine, when there is a statement, we ask countries guarantors, and including Russia, to stop what Russia does recently, and and to change their position, to change their approaches, international approach, and also guarantors of the security of Ukraine. We call to find mechanism of clear, legal guarantees of for security of Ukraine. There are different variants. It could be um, agreements on security, bilateral, and that could be a cooperation in the system of security and defense. But we call them to do that now, because now Ukraine probably is trying to defend it not only itself but also the European security, and we did what we could on the international level. We are thankful for that solidarity. European EU countries and the US and provide to Ukraine. And the Congress voted for the resolution yesterday, and that underlined that. And we expect a more decisive position, and maybe more decisive, not so, in my opinion, slow, feeble, like we felt during the meeting of SC ministers, when many countries cannot feel midterm threats even for their own countries, and because of that, OSCE must demonstrate its efficiency. Otherwise, there is a big problem about the problem. A big problem with organizations that provide security and peace in Europe. The system was destroyed, as we see, and there is nothing else to replace that. And now, since there is such a pause and threats, not only for Ukraine but also for other countries exist. And Ukraine, it is mentioned in Wall Street Journal. The president of Ukraine made clear that Ukraine is not hesitating where to move west and east. It means they will disagree to be a buffer zone, a gray zone between systems of defense and security, between big political economic unions, and Ukraine has no chance to stay in such a suspended state. Our choice has done, and it is supported by the majority of Ukrainians. It is supported in the parliament by the pro-European constitutional majority, and the creation of majority and the government welcomed by all our partners in order to conduct quick, maybe not popular, but efficient reforms. I also would like to underline that despite the fact that in some countries Christmas is coming and people are prepared, but we have a tension in Ukraine. I just arrived from Warsaw, and I had a meet together with Polish partners. There was a consulting committee between presidents of Ukraine and Poland. We have quite a big agenda and ambitious tasks. How to unite efforts of Ukraine and Poland on security issues, and how to enhance our cooperation. The visit of the President of Ukraine, the state of visit of the President of Ukraine planned for December 17-18 to Poland, can be the next serious stage to build institutional, not new format, probably a new impulse of relations between our neighbors. And today, the President of Ukraine pays attention not only to key countries, nuclear countries, and countries of EU like Poland, but to all the rest of the countries on Ukrainian border. Elections in Moldova, where pro-European party, we hope there will be pro-European majority.
There are such expectations. This is an important element for Ukraine, and generally speaking, Ukraine has a potential to acquire very important significance in this part of Europe, although in order to see this, we should overcome the challenges that are facing Ukraine at the moment. And if Ukraine overcomes the challenge of aggression, it is evident that our positions will be strengthened very seriously. Many countries now see that the Ukrainian army has been restored and it has been developed. They are surprised at how quickly this happened, but we know that it was people who supported this and volunteers, and at the moment they are regarding the Ukrainian army in a different way, even in faraway countries. As far as faraway countries are concerned, the communication with representatives of many countries of the world and ministries for foreign affairs in Brussels, it gave us support in the idea to positively respond to the invitation of Australian officials to visit Australia very soon. So I may tell you that the visit of Ukraine's president to Australia is planned for the next week, and we also plan the visit to Singapore, where there is a huge experience of fighting corruption, and there's a lot of issues of economic cooperation and the reforms, because they have in their time taken very serious steps in this direction. As for Australia, At the moment, they are a very reliable partner of Ukraine. And today, after we, by joint effort, Ukraine, Australia, and other countries that suffered as a result of the attack of terrorists against the liner MH17, we have sensed that geographical distances is not what hinders the very close international cooperation. Today, we want to do what we were not able to do earlier, not a single Ukraine's president, and maybe there won't be such a time in the future, so we have the plan to organize the visit of Ukraine's president to Australia. Besides, we are in a constant contact with our transatlantic and European partners. On the 15th of December, we plan the inauguration session of the Council of Association, and we plan very intensive steps as far as the implementation of the association agreement is concerned. And Poland may become today a 10th country that ratified the association agreement between EU and Ukraine. Yesterday, at the session of the Polish Senate, I saw how the entire Senate unanimously voted in favor of this, and this is a manifestation of solidarity, and we think that maybe even during the visit of Ukraine's president to Poland, the ratification of this agreement will be completed by Poland. So for us, this means that the figures that we mentioned before several years about the ratification by European countries. Today, when we actively work with our European counterparts, I think it is very realistic to think that the association agreement will be in force by the end of next year in its entirety. We have the task to see it ratified, but all the EU countries, I think it is very realistic. As for the 19th of December, where the Council of European Union will sit, headed by the friend of Ukraine, new leader of European Union, Mr. Tusk, provides us with hope that these dynamics of support for Ukraine will be intensive, and the president of Ukraine, Poroshenko, is now in constant dialogue with key world leaders. And we also think that the format of support, of continuation of dialogue, or maybe finding solutions with the neighbor in Russia is also an important element. It has to happen with support of our partners. And I think that the nearest week will be very indicative as far as the possibility to fulfill the Minsk agreement is concerned, including the August and September protocols. The position there is the ceasefire, and you have heard that the 9th of December may become such a date, the day of silence, and after this, the withdrawal of artillery and heavy armaments. After this, we hope that Minsk agreements will be fulfilled. A categoric requirement of the Ukrainian side is release of hostages, where Ukraine performs its obligations, but the other side does not. So at the moment, we should not trade, we should not make or take bribes in order to release our citizens. The non-release of hostages we see as the violation and ruination of the agreements. Besides, the issue of borders requires the solution, and the visual control, the so-called visual control over the convoys, does not solve this issue. We need to restore actual control over the borders and with the help and monitoring from the OSCE. Of course, we have to watch the elements of political settlement for which the Kiev authorities are prepared, but in order to do this, we have to see the real ceasefire and the stoppage of the killing of our people. We have the full understanding of how we should proceed with the active position of Ukraine on the international arena. We continue to keep Ukraine in focus of international attention. Solidarity with Ukraine is the most important task of Ukrainian diplomacy, and so far in these very difficult conditions when our opponents are spending a lot of money for information war, Ukraine, while we have much less resources, we still reach the balance and the control of a situation. And it is evident that heroic deeds of our citizens help us who are fighting for the sovereignty of Ukraine in Donetsk region and on our borders. And I think that our joint efforts on every front will bring us the result that we want, peace and a single united Ukraine, consolidated as a political nation that moves towards Europe. Any questions, colleagues? Could you tell us, is it possible, is the new meeting in Minsk possible? Leonid Kuchma mentioned this in the beginning of the week. We think that the session of the Trilateral Contact Group, which is a mechanism to realize Minsk agreements, and I'll tell you that, I remind you that there's a signature of the representative of Russian Federation under the Minsk agreements. Yes, I think that the Trilateral Contact Group is a important element. We insist on this. The position of Ukraine is we are ready to hold the session of the Trilateral Contact Group, and we expect that all the participants support this position. As far as I understand, you do not pin great hopes on the 9th of December. No, I do. However, not on the concrete or specific day, but I think that they will come back to their senses, those who ignore the number of victims in Donetsk and Luhansk region. They will come back to their senses. Those who, after the fake elections, cannot provide for the existence of people there. There's a huge threat of humanitarian disaster there. If we do not arrange ceasefire, then we can just lose our citizens in Donetsk and Luhansk region. Kiev is ready to provide humanitarian help in winter, but the mercenaries do not allow this to happen. As previously they robbed ATMs and bank machines and affiliates. Same now, they do not allow us to deliver humanitarian aid. But I do pin my hopes on the 9th of December, which will be not just an attempt, but a real day of silence, a necessary mechanism to withdraw heavy armaments. The coordinates of the line are designated in the memorandum of 19th of December. And mortars and multiple grenade rocket launchers and artillery systems should be withdrawn to a distance which will not allow to hit the targets. So I do hope that the process will start on the 9th of December. I have a question. Today, the international mass media tell us about the gap in the approaches to settle the crisis between the U.S. and Germany. German press characterizes Putin's speech as an attempt to launch dialogue with Ukraine, while the American Congress adopts the resolution that condemns Russian aggression. Are there any changes in the politics of those countries? I think it is evident that since the occupation of Crimea, the positions of EU countries and US have become consolidated, and this is one of the most powerful factors that stops the aggressor. It provides result even now. There's no gap between EU and US. On the contrary, there are very well-coordinated steps as far as the additional measures for sanctions are concerned, and the political position, the position of Germany today, especially of the Chancellor Angela Merkel, is very productive and constructive for the settlement of the situation. I think, this is my personal opinion, among the leaders who really can demonstrate the world level of leadership, Angela Merkel does this today, and she demonstrates both the skill and the ability to come out intact of most different situation. As of now, we have had 36 telephone conversations of the President of Ukraine and Chancellor of Germany and 7 meetings in different formats. We hold a constant dialogue with this important the European countries, and you maybe paid attention to what Mr. Putin said about the ratification of the association agreement. They were not able to halt the process of rapprochement between Ukraine and the European Union. And even those countries that seemed to differently regard the Ukrainian issue, they are now joining in the common attitude of European countries. This concerns pipelines issues and the general attitude towards the Ukrainian problem. It is very hard to make for the unanimous position of 28 countries. And I think it is very indicative that they try to impose an opinion about the gap between the policy of the US and the European Union. On the contrary, the position is joint. I mean, the US and key countries of EU, and they are solidary with Ukraine. How do you personally evaluate the speech of Putin yesterday?
Nothing new. Absolutely nothing new. I wanted to hear really understanding of a big, huge geopolitical mistake of Russian Federation against interest of Russian people who live in Russia for the future, because Russia will be on our northern border in one way or the other in the future, in a long perspective. That's why we need to find solutions, and but at the same time, expectation that you can act in the 21st century with the tools of the 20th century, and to explain his role through or with or efforts to make it a different role through violating the rights of neighbors. That's ruining policy. It will not bring to good results. But unfortunately, yesterday we've not heard any new signal. They go on with the old line. I hope that a clear, efficient, consolidating steps of international community will force to come to conclusions. Any other question? Thank you very much.